I'd like to ratify the agenda for tonight.
So we're not going to use
Does anyone have any, I'll take a motion on that?
Madam Chair, I believe you've got some changes.
There are some changes, yep. We will not have, item number 4 has been moved or removed from the agenda, and item number 7 has also been removed from the agenda. With those changes.
With those changes, I'll make a motion that we ratify the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Don.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Matt. Any discussion? Okay, how do you vote, Matt?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
It's working.
Agenda is ratified. Okay, now the fun part. We have some students from the Quashnet School and their teacher, Alicia Franklin, here to give us a presentation. So come on up, guys.
Come on up, guys. I just want to say thank you and acknowledge Mrs. Franklin and the wonderful students. They have done such a tremendous job, and Mrs. Franklin has worked very hard to bring to life Portrait of a Graduate. So thank you, Mrs. Franklin, and thank you, students.
So, Portrait of a Graduate is something that is sort of new in 5th grade. Like, we've heard of it, we've seen it.
Before,
Mrs.
sorry,
Franklin.
if you could just grab the mic so
Sure.
that the people who are watching can also hear you. Thank you. I know.
Alright. So, Portrait of a Graduate is something that is new for 5th graders and just Quash it in general. And I think we see it on, we see it tagged on our lesson plans, we see it in our hallways, but what we've learned is that maybe not necessarily, not in kid language. So our class has been working really hard on seeing, kind of relating it to our Falcon 5 and seeing how we kind of live up to these expectations already, and then how to better ourselves moving forward as we move on to 6th grade and 7th grade and so on. So some of the things, my 5th graders, actually, can you push the slide? You tap it once. We've taken a couple of weeks as a, kind of a, like our classroom community time, and we, and we looked kind of more into those specific criterias and thought about what does it look like in our classroom, what does it look like for my classmates, and so on, what does it sound like in our environment, and then how does it impact us and our feelings. We went through all 5 criteria. Another tab. There you go, we did the Resilient Me, we did, and then from there, students actually took it over and started nominating each other. So something we do in Quashnet is the Falcon of the Week Award. And usually teachers acknowledge this and look at what students have accomplished as learners or as collaborators. But we thought it might be more impactful to hear it from each other. So weekly, how do we usually do this? Can I pass this on to somebody who wants to talk about our nomination process?
But we love to hear from you guys.
Yeah,
Just pretend you're talking to Ms. Franklin.
Go for it, Kimmy. You got this.
Just do it and get it over. Get it over.
How do you nominate? How do we do this?
Oh, we just picked someone that we think was a great citizen this week, and we think were kind to us and helped us.
Who wants to add? Go for it, Sophia.
And we also pick like what category they were being in the week. So let's say like Resilient Me, we would pick one of the categories and put it into the form.
So,
Do you nominate from each category each week, or just one, you try to pick from each week, or?
We just, I don't really know,
It's okay.
we just, pick a student that was being in one of the categories, and then put in the form.
so something that's extremely special about this crew is that all these students have actually received the award and have been recognized by their peers. And I think we typically have the longest representation of our skills. Each student walks away with their award and their pencil and their brag tags and an entire paragraph of achievements. So, which I gave them extra copy because I think they always need more reminders how awesome they are. So, they have done amazing work. So, and to the point where they're exemplary in sharing that with their other 5th grade students. And our winter board, we took the criteria, we linked them to light bulbs, and now we are lighting up the season with all of our Orchard graduate achievements. So this is the beginning of the week. It's quite full now. So it's down 5th grade hallways if you'd like to come down and see. Yes, I got the approval from Mrs. O'Brien. You guys can come see. Any other things you think they should know about our process? Do we have any next steps that we want to do? No? You were so excited. Any other
I
questions?
recognized you at first standing on the end there, and now I'm like, oh, no.
Did you have any other questions for our 5th graders?
Can they share some of what has been, like the nominations or any of those? What are they holding in their hands?
Their nominations.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to read their nomination?
In case I want.
How about somebody read about the other person?
Ooh, switch with your neighbor. I like that idea. Switch your neighbor and you can share.
How many nominations?
All right, we'll just go right down the line. So what did they say about Nick?
Nick is a thoughtful, dedicated student. This week he has been nominated by his classmates for the Falcon of the Week award. A fellow student reported that Nick is an engaged citizen because he helped with an assignment that was due that day. Another classmate shared Nick was a purposeful communicator and collaborator because he's always engaged in listening. Another classmate agreed by acknowledging Nick has taught him many things about several different things in history, such as languages or wars. Nick has also been working very hard on his work. Thank you, Nick, for all your efforts dedicated to learning. You are a leader and model in our community. Kellen Branch is a responsible and hardworking student. This week he has been nominated by his classmates for the Falcon of the Week award for being an engaged citizen and an empowered knowledge seeker. One peer shared Kellen as an engaged citizen because he always raises his hand and is always on appropriate sites when working on assignments. Another classmate noted Kellen as an empowered knowledge seeker because this student gets all of his work done at an efficient rate and he works great with his group to challenge their skills and knowledge of their work. Thank you, Kellen, for all your efforts and your learning and dedication to our school. You are a leader and role model in our community.
Swap with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, swap.
Swap with each other.
I'll make it for you. Gianna Gugoli is a kind and resilient student. This week she has been nominated by her classmates for the Falcon of the Week award for being an engaged citizen and resilient. One peer shared Gianna is an engaged citizen because she is going to bring a classmate to lunch bunch that has never been to lunch bunch before. Also, she is a very great and sweet friend. Another classmate explained she helps me in math class centered in some science. She is a great friend and leader. A third student remembered a time when a classmate had fallen and Gianna had helped them get up and walked them down from the nurse. Another classmate noted that Gianna is resilient because she is hardworking. Thank you for Gianna for all your efforts in your learning and dedication to our school. You are a leader and role model to our community. is a kind and hardworking student. This week she has been nominated by her classmates for the Falcon of the Week award by being an engaged citizen, a collaborative problem solver, and for being resilient. One peer shared, Lily is resilient because in math, Lily tried to figure out a problem when we were doing mental math. However, she couldn't figure it out, so she went to Mr. Williams and asked if he could help. That shows me that she can ask for help when she needs it. This also shows by asking for help and try again, she is able to successfully complete her work. The other classmate explained Lily is an engaged citizen because she is always kind and thoughtful, asking politely and using etiquette. A third student explained she is a collaborative problem solver because she is very nice and is a very nice person, as well as she is very good at cheering people up. One more thing that is she is very good at working with others and very persistent. Thank you, Lily, for all your efforts in your learning and dedication to our school. You are a leader and role model in your community.
Kimmy Nightingale is a kind and hardworking student. This week she has been nominated by her classmates and teachers for the Falcon 5 of the Week award by being an engaged citizen, collaborator and problem solver, and a critical thinker. One peer shared Kimmy is an engaged student because she is so nice, kind, and is always following the Falcon 5. Her teacher shared that Kimmy is a collaborative problem solver and because she supports her classmates and partners to take on challenges and accomplish their goals in class. Her quiet strength and role model choices have made her an impactful leader in the classroom. Thank you, Kimmy, for all your efforts in your learning and dedication to our school. You are a leader and a role model in our community.
Sophia is a caring, responsible student. This week, she has been nominated by her classmates for the Falcon of the Week award, being an engaged citizen and a critical thinker problem solver. One peer shared, Kellen is an engaged citizen because he had been respectful and hardworking all week. She listened quietly and respectfully to her teacher. Why does it say Kellen?
Where does it say Kellen?
It was the Google form, I'm sorry.
Oh.
She has participated in class discussions and activities. Another classmate noted Sophia is a critical thinker and problem solver because she helps me if I ever have a question or don't know how to do something. She is a really kind person. Thank you, Sophia, for all your efforts in learning and dedication to our school. You are a leader and a role model in our community.
So believe it or not, all I did was the transition words and the intro and the closing. Everything else was student-based. So it's really impactful to hear what students notice and what they value. So.
Yay!
Absolutely amazing.
Can we get a picture with the group at the school committee? They can come over there. You all right with that?
Yeah, right there.
No.
Oh.
At this point,
Push-
set it
yeah,
and forget
there you
it.
go, you got it.
We stood there like
I was gonna say you've never been to a dance.
Why don't you guys step forward?
Yeah, come along forward.
Class, so like, oh, hey,
We'll stick the top into it. Come along first. Come up front. We'll go behind you. Ms. Franklin.
got you guys?
Ready? Oh, very good. There you go. Okay, she's going like this. Do you want to get in?
Oh, I got it. Aw, look at that group.
Do you want a picture? You can come this way.
I know, I
You don't have to have a twisted side angle shot. I know, right?
Nice to see you. One more.
Ready?
Amazing.
Good job.
Great job, guys.
Thank you so much for coming. Fifth graders.
Hopefully we'll see you here soon, okay? Good job.
Many amazing
It goes into the microphone, where I have it there, and it goes down.
Well, thank you guys for sharing that. That was amazing to listen to, and I hope you're all really proud of yourselves. And thank you for bringing Fortune of the Graduate to life.
Right one go into the back of the microphone, where I have it plugged in there.
Stop it. Miss Math, she's amazing.
And if he's ever doing college stuff, I can come down and
Okay, do we have anyone for public comment?
Just looking.
I didn't see any
Not
eyes
at
up
this
there.
time.
Okay. Leah, hello.
Good evening, everyone. It's so good to see everyone again. I feel like it's been a while since I've been here because I was driving here and I was like, wow, I don't remember doing this for a while. So it's good to see you all again.
Okay, hold on. I just thought you said you were driving here, like you drove the car. And I'm like, it's been a really long time. I had the same thought. I'm like, sorry to interrupt, but you freaked me out for a minute.
Still a few more years.
Okay.
This month, quite a lot has happened. I mean, it's the month of Christmas and New Year's, so a lot is going to happen. For starters, a lot of clubs and groups within the school volunteered to help wrap gifts for free in the Commons. It was really nice because, Honor Society, Natural, and Student Body Government, and teams, tennis teams and stuff, they volunteered at different times and different days at that store, and different members of part of each community went and just wrapped gifts for free, and it was a really nice way to bring up the festivity in the community. So that was nice. And then Human Rights also helped contribute to filling 2 backpacks for the backpack drive, and I think in total there were 15 or 16 from the school so far that have been donated, and it's you get a new backpack and you fill it up with supplies like napkins, tissues, pencils, pens, stuff like that, and you donate it to other people in need, and it's just really nice to do for the community because some people aren't as fortunate as us in the Mashpee community, so it was really nice to do. There was also a winter coat drive as well, which is set to go on to the 22nd, and so there's a little cart outside of the Mashpee High School where you can just drop off coats. Again, it's going to people that are in need, which is again really nice. And it's still going on, so I remember seeing the cart out this morning, so if you have any jackets, I know there's only tomorrow left, but if you have any, it's still there. Each grade had a class meeting this month, as well as we also had an Alice drill meeting today, which kind of just, Officer Hennessy, I almost said Dr. Hennessy. Officer Hennessy and Dr. Manette both talked about, the safety that's needed and how, to go about an Alice drill and the procedures, just to keep our school and our community safe, and just to let us know that, we should always be prepared for that instance, although it's very unfortunate that it does happen sometimes, but it does, and we should be prepared so that we can be safe in our school and our community. This past week, there's been a lot of Christmas spirit, as I said again, so this week and last week have both been Christmas spirit weeks, technically. So last Monday was Green and Red Day, so everyone wore as much green and red as they could, and Tuesday was Fleece Day for Feliz Navidad, and Wednesday was Pajama Day, then Thursday was Headgear Day where you wear hats and headbands and stuff, and then Friday was Plaid Day, and then this week, Monday was Slipper Day, which everyone was very happy about. Tuesday was Sparkly and Bright Day where everyone wore sparkles and festive clothes. Today was Winter Wonderland Day, so a lot of people wore blues and nice wintry colors. And then tomorrow's supposed to be Ugly Sweater Day, my most favorite day of the year, because I love wearing ugly sweaters and I love seeing all the other ugly sweaters. I don't even know why they're called ugly sweaters, because I think they're so beautiful. I love them. I love them so much. I used to have this one where you press the button and like the hat started like jiggling. It was so awesome.
Okay, that's a winner.
I know, I outgrew it, but I definitely, like, if there was a contest, I feel like it would have won. But Friday is flannel day, so these past few weeks have been really fun, and I feel like it brings our school community together too, because we're always talking about about what each other is wearing and what we plan to wear and stuff. Since we last talked, fall sports had recently ended. Winter sports have just started, so including winter cheer, basketball, hockey, track, gymnastics. All of them sound so fun. Honestly, I was so torn between which winter sport I should start this year because in 7th and 8th I hadn't done a winter sport, so this year was my first year and I was like, I don't know which one because they all are amazing programs. Last Wednesday, a famous author called Gareth Hines, he zoomed in to the school for the freshmen and it was just awesome. So he's a novel adaptation author, so he writes novel adaptations of famous books and plays and stuff. So if you guys have ever heard of The Odyssey, he wrote a novel adaptation of that. He also wrote a novel adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. I haven't read the Romeo and Juliet one, but we're going to read it as a class. And we just read The Odyssey. The Odyssey was amazing, and then Romeo and Juliet looks like it's going to be amazing. But basically he came and he talked about the Odyssey and how he came about writing it. And it was really nice because you could see after there was a lot of talk about the book of Odyssey, so it was really nice to see the whole freshman grade and just being interactive with each other again. Mashi's really good at getting the community together. So yesterday there was this amazing field trip. So with the music classes, I talked about it last time. Miss Frazier, Miss Marrera, they took us and a lot of students within the music and the tech program. We went up to Boston and we watched the Six musical. It was absolutely amazing and it was such an epic experience and I'm so happy that us Mashi students could experience it because it was awesome. I was so sad because they were like, no recording. I was like, okay. But it was so awesome. Another really cool thing that happened this month was Environmental Club took a field trip to Quashnet here, and we held 5 stations for all the 5th graders, and all of these were science stations. So we had a food web activity, we had a water cycle bracelets activity, and a sandbox scavenger hunt for shells. It was really nice. All the 5th graders were awesome. They were such a great grade, and I feel I'm so excited for them to be in high school because I feel they're just going to be a great class. They were also nice and interactive. It just went really smoothly too. There were no issues at all. It was just a great day, honestly. So I hope that we can do something like that again in the future. It was awesome.
What did you say, Mrs. O'Brien?
I would concur. It's a fabulous event.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So some of the faces that were up here I did recognize from the Environmental Club Day, so it was just awesome. But that's it for this evening. Thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful, very, very Merry Christmas.
I was just thinking as you were talking, 2 things. And I don't know if you got to go to the play, but I have to say the Blue Falcon Theater Club did an amazing job on Airness. And I didn't hear that in you, but they did so phenomenal. And
I heard that.
I went Saturday night, loved it. Kudos to all of them.
As I was doing my cheer practice, we could hear them practicing, and I really wanted to go so badly to their play, but they're having another one in spring.
Yep,
so.
they are. But that was just this past weekend, and they did an amazing job. And as you were talking about your spirit sweater, your spirit week, Hanukkah's this week, and your sparkly sweater day could have tied, you were tying something else into Christmas, you could have tied sparkling into Hanukkah, because it's the Festival of Lights.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Because tonight's what, the 4th night, 3rd night?
Yeah, Sunday was the 1st.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So I'm not the math girl. Well, I am actually the math girl, but I know it's the 4th.
Well, thank you so much, and
Thank
we
you.
appreciate hearing all of your reporting.
Yeah, I love sharing.
All right, Dr. Hanscom, I believe you are up next.
I think I am.
You have a handout at your seats of the slides.
You do, and I'm projecting it here as well. Here we go. It's very far away for me to be doing it, and I feel very cool right now. Woo! Okay, hi. So I'm gonna review the results of the 2022 MCAS on a high level, like the 30,000 level foot view. Same with AP scores, and then talk to you about the process of analysis that our teachers and educators went through looking at these data points, and give you a sampling of some of the next steps that we found. So just as a reminder, for those of you who don't follow our school calendar as closely as I do, our October full day of PD is our data day, and so these results are released very close to that day, so the teachers and the PLCs, the professional learning communities and departments look at the data together, we walk through a protocol, and then they come up with, okay, so now what? For me, I'm not, and I'll say this as publicly as I can, I am not a believer in high stakes testing for anything related to student wellness or achievement. I think it's a way to justify funding sometimes from the state and federal level, and it's a federal requirement that we do it. But if we're gonna have to do it, then it's really important to us that we use the data in a way that actually makes sense. So we're not looking to have, you know, I can't think of the word. We're not looking for people to feel bad or good so much as, okay, this is where we're at based on this one measure, and so now what? I will say as a state overall, and this has been in the paper for a while, the scores went down more in ELA than in math over the last few years because of obviously the COVID and the absenteeism related to COVID in particular, and our scores are no different. What I will say is our growth on MCAS, typical growth, what we look for is between 40 and 60% growth, and all of our categories fell into that growth, which actually brings me joy and happiness because that's looking where they started and where they finished. So with that, oh, I hit the wrong button, sorry. The first, there we go. They split up the MCAS scores. They report them by grades 3 to 8 altogether, and then high school. So you'll see ELA, math, and science, and the percentage points related to the state versus us. So on the first two rows, we want our district percentage to be higher than the state, and we want it to be lower than the state on the bottom two. And so you'll see we are below the state in exceeding and meeting expectations on ELA, and then above in partially and not. Below and not. So it's not where we want to be, and there's a lot of reasons for that that we've looked at and I'll talk through. However, the overall only 35% of kids across the state, grades 3 to 8, were found to be meeting expectations in ELA based on the MCAS from 2022. So that's concerning everywhere. There was a bigger dip in ELA than there was in math. And so in math, we had fewer kids exceeding, more kids meeting, and then you can see the rest, more kids partially meeting and fewer kids not meeting. And then science, we're pretty much at or above the state where we want to be. And here we were below, which is good, relative to scores. So then the next, come on. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So this is grade 10. This was the first year that they took the new MCAS in grade 10, and our students did really well relative to the state, which is exciting. It's not surprising. Our 3 to 8 students, their interrupted learning, their time where they were absent more or that we weren't in school was really formative for learning how to read. It was really formative for mathematics. The kids who took 10th grade last year, they missed 8 and 9 and part of 10, or they missed the end of 8, most of 9 with the hybrid, and part of 10. The 10th grade was like masks still and all that chaos. So they had their foundational reading and math skills already. There wasn't as far for them to fall as, you know, kids who never got the diphthong lesson in reading and phonics, or never learned how to do doubles when you're doing mental math, or things that we normally would have taught had the pandemic not interrupted that. So I'm not surprised that our grade 10 scores are better, and you can see that they are relative to the state. And so that's for ELA, math, and for science. Now these are our AP results. As you know, we in Mashpee provide free AP testing for all students who enroll in AP. We do have a recommendation process for kids to enter AP, but that is not a cut and dried rule, so it's really any kid who wants to take AP can. We just work with them ahead of time if there are concerns about the level, the amount of work or the rigor of the course, they're still able to take it, but we talk about what other supports do we need to put in place for kids. As a result, our scores sometimes are a little bit lower because we have that open policy, but for us it's about access. And Dr. Monette said yesterday in a meeting we had, and I agree, we'd like every student who graduates from Mashpee Middle High School to have taken at least one AP class. And I think we're well on our way to moving towards that goal. One of the pieces of AP this year that we're doing is expanding our AP offerings. So up there you can see for 8, how many is that? 12, 13, 14, 15 offerings last year. We've added 2 this year currently. So to what we're offering here, we've also added AP Psychology this year for the first time, and AP Computer Science, which is offered through a grant partnership with the STEM Foundation. So it's through virtual high school that our kids are taking AP Computer Science with one of our teachers facilitating the virtual high school. And it's Mr. Looney, and he's been trained in how to teach AP Computer Science as well. So we're pretty excited about what we're doing with AP. Next year we also plan, we think, to bring in AP Seminar, which it would be a 10th grade English class, and it would replace 10th grade honors. So it would get kids taking APs sooner and having more opportunities, because what happens is you've got all these options, and Dalia will be able to speak to this as you get older probably, but you can't fit all of those into your schedule if they're all in grade 11 and 12. If the only time you can take an AP is 11 and 12, you can't fit all the ones you want to necessarily. But if we can spread them out earlier, you have more opportunities for kids to take classes, and they get practice in taking an AP level class younger, so that by the time they're taking them maybe 2 or 3 or 4 as seniors, they've had experience taking AP and they're more likely to get that 4 or 5, which privates take, state universities take 3 and above for credit. So here you can see we offered bio, chem, environmental, physics, English Lang, English Lit, European history, human geography, US history, Calc AB, stats, Spanish, 3D art, 2D art, and music theory. And our kids did really well. I mean, there were some, I've looked at the 5-year trends, some of our courses kids did better this year, in 22 on the AP than they had. Most of them they didn't do as well, and again, that interrupted learning time sort of makes sense for that. So that is our AP. So now, go ahead.
So I have a question, I guess, in regard to when I look at the passing rate, and you mentioned it was low, and obviously it is low on some of these.
Sorry, I'm trying to go backwards to there. Keep going.
It's nice that kids are getting the experience taking the test, but if they're not going to, if they don't have a real opportunity to pass the test, that almost to me is demotivating versus motivating individuals. So I guess I'm wondering, one, what is our criterion for individuals to be able to take this, and are they prepared or prepped enough to be realistically able to be successful?
Those are good questions, Don. So my answers to those, I have several thoughts. The first is that by opening up our criteria to any student, it allows access, which is a part of our strategic plan, and it's part of what we believe in Mashpee. And so access without support is useless. You're right, that can be demotivating. But what the research tells us is that a child who takes an AP class, whether they pass it or not, is more likely to be to place into college math or English in college than have to take remedial. So in other words, you know, there was when kids go to college, they have to take a placement test sometimes, particularly at the public universities. And what we have seen over the years is that many kids were falling into needing remedial math before they could get into a college level class. And then, so they'd have to.
I have heard that in the past.
Right, and they'd have to pay for that.
Right.
By taking just the act of taking a rigorous course like an AP class, cuts that likelihood, I don't have the number, I was gonna say in half, but I might be hyperbolic on that. It cuts that likelihood so that kids, even if they don't pass the AP exam, are likely to then go to college and only take college level classes, so they're saving money. 2, if they don't take the test, what we saw with our scores going down is that prior to Mashpee paying for the tests, kids could join the AP class, but I'm not gonna take the test. I don't think I can. And they had no, so our scores went down because we had everybody take them once we started paying for it. They have no chance of getting college credit if they don't take the test. And in my mind, if you're gonna do the work, you should have the chance to take the test and get the credit. And then 3rd, the kids who don't pass, we work with so that we figure out what went wrong, we look at their scores, we look at the areas of deficit, and then let's say it was US history and they're gonna take AP Euro next. Okay, what do we need to do with you for AP Euro so that you can pass the test? So that's the 3 pieces that I think answer that.
Well, I guess it would be useful from my perspective, to that point then, to have information that tells me those people who are either retaking the test.
They
or
don't retake the test, that's not an option.
They can't retake?
No.
So it's one and done?
Yes.
And there's no so if, kind of piggybacking off of that, you know, in terms of like chemistry, for example, like they don't have to take regular chemistry before they take AP chemistry?
Yes, they do.
They do, okay.
Yes,
So
there
they're
is a
just-
scope and
So they're getting a
sequence.
foundational,
Yes.
like bio 101 and then AP bio?
Yes.
Okay.
All kids take bio in either 9th or 10th grade, depending on their track, and then you would not take AP biology.
Well, I was just
without
trying to
having
figure
taken
out how you're
bio.
saying if they start younger, I guess that's.
Oh,
because
meaning just taking that level of rigor, of course, not taking AP bio younger, but taking any AP course gets you ready to take additional courses, AP kind level courses as you get older, because there are AP specific skills
Yes.
that generalize across the content.
Okay.
Okay, so, I should know the answer to this, but I don't. So, is there any impact on a student who takes an AP class in regard to getting credits for graduating?
No, so they have to pass the class. Passing the class is separate from passing the test.
AP still allows you to place into college. Like I know like back in the day when I took my AP tests, like I placed out of my English 101 and composition, like I jumped all those
Yes.
100 levels and went. But like math, I had to retake calculus because I didn't pass my AP calculus test, and I have no shame in saying
No,
that.
I took calculus multiple times too. So that's what I was saying earlier. All schools, pretty much except the Ivies, take 4s and 5s. Massachusetts public universities take 3 and above.
So if they score 3 or higher, they get automatically.
However, if you take AP, like on my transcript, I'm taking AP Bio, and I take the AP Bio test and I fail it, which we don't find out if you've passed or not until till the summer, 1. But I've passed the class. The benefit is that the schools that I'm looking at show that I took this rigorous class. They don't know whether or not I passed it, because I can choose to send my scores or not to them. So that's the benefit. A benefit, sorry, a benefit.
That's an important benefit.
I think so.
Right, to help distinguish them and to provide them with additional future opportunities.
Yes.
So that they can go to the school of their choice, right? But my first impression, just looking at this data, is that they're not prepared to be successful in passing the test. And I'm not sure, you're saying, no, they're passing the class, but if the class is not tied into what they ultimately need to understand and be able to demonstrate to pass the test, it doesn't seem to me that then the class is adequately positioned.
I hear you on that. I guess my response would be that there are people who can absolutely demonstrate knowing, understanding, and being able to do what is expected in a college level class and not pass a test, because the test is set up in such a way that they can't access it for whatever reason. Or there's test anxiety, or there's lots of other reasons.
No, I get that.
And you're still concerned that and that's a great point. So the other thing with AP is that our AP teachers have to go through the AP training before they're allowed to teach AP, not because of Mashpee, that's AP's rules. And the curriculum is provided by AP. So we are teaching the AP prescribed curriculum for these classes. It's not Mashpee making up the curriculum. So it's looking at our pacing, it's looking at the levels of supports we put in place for kids who maybe wouldn't have accessed an AP before but now are. And Dr. Monette and Mrs. Kett and Mrs. What's her name? No, Mrs. DeBoer and I have been meeting, and with Mr. Mercado, because he oversees AP for the MMHS, to absolutely put in place the wraparound supports that our kids need. This is, yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, I'm not gonna pick on chemistry because I know that one's hard, but just looking at US history, that concerns me extremely, because, you know, that's not formulas and periodic tables and all of that good stuff, right? To have to deal with. And only 30% can pass?
Only 30% passed this in 2022.
Right, well,
But,
that's only stuff.
so let me explain, in US history is a great example. We have a pre-AP US history class that the kids take the year before.
Okay.
And that class was interrupted by the pandemic. So they did not have a normal year. Yes, we were in school full-time, but the kids were not normal. The kids were not having the same experience. They were still sitting 6 feet apart. She was teaching it in the library, actually, the pre-AP. So they missed foundational stuff that hopefully would have better prepared them for the AP US history class. And, Don, yeah, we can always do better, and we need to. But historically, over the last 5 years, sorry, I'm using the wrong mouse, our AP US scores have been much higher than they were this year. I just want to pull them up.
So in your opinion, these are outlier?
I believe
scores?
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, 2019, 3.43 was the average. It's 2.06 there. In 2021, it was 2.82. So it's never, this is for sure by a significant level the lowest score that I've seen on that test.
I get it, and I guess back to my original question is, what are we doing?
So
Or
that's,
what did you do?
yep, well, not me personally, I mean, it's a team, my friends. So
Well,
what we were
as-
talking
as
about
school-
with Dr. Monette, Mr. Mercado, Mrs. DeBoer, Ms. Kett, and I is as we bring in additional APs like AP Seminar for that 10th grade honors English class, AP Seminar teaches kids how to take AP classes. It teaches them how to look at a research question and break it down. It teaches them the foundational skills for college readiness. And at the same time, if we're going to have an open door policy of AP, we need to do better with our wraparound services. So that's what we're planning on for next year, are what are the supports that we have in place for kids who may or may not have been in an AP class before. Is it a directed study? Is it if you're a kid who's never taken an AP and you weren't recommended for an AP, but you really want to take this AP, you're going to get a directed study in your schedule so that you have time to get supports from paraprofessional or tutors or whatever. So it's looking, one other piece that we use is the AP Potential, which is a report we run, and last year was the first year we did it, where the teachers recommend kids, we run the AP Potential score based on the PSATs, and you get a report of and we offer, every kid takes the PSATs, we pay for that in Mashpee. Based on the PSATs, you can see which kids have the potential to do well in which AP classes. And so what we did last year is we then went up to those kids who were not enrolled in AP as we were doing scheduling and had personal conversations with them and said, hey, this report says you'd be really good at whatever. What do you think about trying it? And we got, I think, 12 more kids to sign up for AP classes by doing that. Now, that gives them a boost of confidence, but it's not enough. So we also need to have those sort of personalized plans for those kids. And that's what we're working on to have in place for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I just want to share too, I was at the play on Friday night speaking with a former Mashpee student who's University of Mass Lowell, and he's already a junior because of the credits he earned through AP, because I was like, that can't be possible. But he then spoke to me about the AP credits that were accepted there, so saves a lot of money for the family that way too.
I think it's an important program that we offer here in Mashpee. You know, we spend a bunch of money to make it an open program, to help encourage people to take it. And it does give kids who are successful a leg up, I think, in regard to their college applications and in their ultimate college programs, and it saves them and their parents a boatload of money.
Yes.
I just don't think right now, based on these results, we're achieving what we need to be achieving.
I would agree with you. I just wouldn't make any big decisions based on these data this year.
Well, I'm not making a big decision.
No, I didn't say you were, I was just.
But what I'm looking for is what are we doing to help improve, you know, students' opportunity to be able to successfully pass this through the supports that you talked about, etc.
Do you feel like you got that answer?
I think I got some generalities of it. What will be the most important is sitting down next year when hopefully we have an apples and apples
Yes.
Comparison basis to see, did we actually move the ball?
Yeah.
You know, do we have more kids who are taking it pass?
Yes.
Because, once again, I believe it's demotivating. You know, I recall not passing calculus the first time I took it.
Man, calculus is getting a bad rap tonight.
Sorry, calculus teacher, you just wrote it.
Yeah, my personal excuse was, I went to a very small high school. I never heard of calculus.
Yeah.
Until I got to college and found out that, gee, A and B are all over the place doing strange things that I did not comprehend. And, you know, ended up having to retake it in order to get through, and in the process determined that, you know, my goal of becoming a mechanical engineer was probably not very realistic at that point, and then found something that a profession that only required me to know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, generally speaking.
And Mashpee Public Schools reaps the benefits of that education, I just want to say.
But what we're hearing is that the MCAS scores and the look at the base courses and improving upon that is then going to lead to the improvement of the AP program, is basically what I'm hearing you're working toward.
Yeah, not the MCAS scores, the AP.
No, but but using, because if you improve the general base classes, that's going to set that foundation for them to achieve better in the AP classes.
It's both though, and we're specifically targeting AP classes for how do we get those kids to improve.
Because I feel that, you know, both of those are going to, they're very interconnected.
Yes.
And
one thing I didn't mention too on the MCAS score, sorry Kathy, I didn't cut you off, was that this year the state is using the scores from 22 as their baseline, and all targets and accountability will come from, this will be the year one, because there were too many outlier weird things that went on from 2019 until now. And so this is year one. So we'll have the opportunity to look, Dawn, at the, okay, so now what next year? All right, let me get through.
Madam Chairman, I would just, or Chair, I would just appreciate if we could get an update after the, sometime in the spring.
On?
Once you've had your discussions and more concrete of what you're doing.
Oh, like the actual action plan moving forward. Yeah, absolutely, no problem. So you can read this yourself, but this was the process of analysis, looking at, the one thing that was really nice this year that we didn't have in years past is that the state gave us, they released many more of the test items from MCAS than they had in the past. So there were years with science where we would try to analyze the data and we would have no idea what they were even asking. We would have one, like a general topic standard, but we wouldn't know anything about what the question was asking. And they released a lot more this year, which made it much easier for us to target our interventions based on that. So the PLCs went through this data-driven dialogue, and they spent the day going through that. Just a note, pre-K looked at their own Peli data, and then they went and did a problem-solving protocol. So highlights, just I'm giving you an example of things in math, ELA, and science that were found. So in grade 3 math, we found that the students did really well on, I can't see that far, is it fractions?
Visual representations?
Students do better on questions that had visual.
Oh, no, here, I was looking here. Is it fractions it says, right?
Fractions,
Okay,
line plots.
fractions, line plots, and arrays. And here's why. We think that the visual representations made it easier for kids. The grade 3 math, some concerns were word problems. They were multiplication, with the exception of using arrays, and relationship between multiplication and division. And the hypothesis of why that was a concern was that the reading skills are impacting the comprehension of math at grade 3, and especially multi-step number stories and the directions on the math open responses. So their next steps, because that's a concern, they're making sure they're using a program, Math for Today, for number stories, and they're we're piloting a new math curriculum, 2 different new math curriculums at the elementary level this year. We'll be making a recommendation for you. And what we're using to analyze the pilots are the areas of concern that our current program is not meeting. And then in English Language Arts, in grade 7, we saw that determining which piece of evidence supports an inference from a passage was a strength, and this is why. And then a concern for sure across the board for us was writing. And that was true in all of the grade levels. And so in particular, looking at how 2 passages reveal important traits of the main character. So taking 2 passages and inferring and coming up with similarities about characters in each of the passages and writing why. So there's a lot here as to why it happened and what they're doing to move forward. And then finally in science, they saw that earth and space science was a strength, and I think their hypothesis made me laugh. It's taught more in the earlier grades. Tell me you don't remember studying the solar system in like a lot of different grades, right? And how much fun it was, and you'd build the model, and oh my gosh, I loved that. And so it's interesting and it's accessible to students. Physical science in grade 8 was a weakness, and so they think it was because of when it was taught. The scope and sequence in grade 8 was taught at the end of the year, physical science. There are some deficits in math skills, and it's only covered lightly in grade 8. If you can remember, in science, they only test our kids at grades 5, 8, and 10, or 9, depending on bio. So what grade 8 measures what kids have learned in science in grades 6, 7, and 8. And so physical science is covered lightly in grade 7. So what they did is they reordered the units in grade 7 and 8 so that physical science comes sooner, and then they're spiraling in physical science concepts throughout the year. So those are just 3 examples of the content areas by grade level and what teachers came up with as next steps. Each PLC has a problem-solving protocol where they have the hypothesis, they're putting in the next steps, and then at each time they meet, they're checking on the progress towards those steps and adjusting practices as needed. So the sort of overall summation of this is that scores were down, but across the state that is true. Our growth was where we want it to be. It was between 40 and 60%, which is good. And we are full steam ahead with sort of supporting, and remember I said this last meeting, we're supporting our learners. We're not just supporting their achievement on these tests. We're supporting our learners as human beings. And so in doing so, we are very confident that our scores are going to do nothing but go up next year.
Can you just clarify the 40 to 60% growth?
I don't have it on it's not in your spreadsheet. It's not on your presentation, but growth.
So what is,
yeah.
growth from what to what?
So and this is the statistical analysis of DESE, not me. So I'm not necessarily going to be great at it, but DESE takes a cohort of students and they track those students against each other for the next level of MCAS. Because 20,000 got canceled, 21 was whatever. They took actually the students from 19, their scores, and they cohorted them against their scores in 2022. And so you look, they get their growth percentile based on how much growth their cohort made. And if they made average growth, like the most of the kids in the cohort, or more or less. And so it's like a bell curve, so 40 to 60% is average, and that's where we want to see our kids. And that is where we saw the aggregate of our students on all of the MCAS testing.
So just to clarify, that's comparing 2019 to 2022.
22. So the kids who, when they took it in 19, let's use most of our kids, not yours, but they took, the last MCAS they took, 19 was the 4th grade MCAS. They cohort those kids based on those scores and how they did, and they compare them with those same kids in 7th grade, because that was 22 when they took the MCAS. And it's across the state how they do this. And they compare the growth to that cohort. They said, Rob Curtin, who's in charge of the MCAS at DESE, they determined, looking at the assessments, that 2019 was the best fit for growth percentiles to 22. It was the most likely. It was the most alike to 2022.
So the 40 to 60 is over that 3-year window. That's not every year.
Correct.
Okay.
Never, generally
Generally, it would be.
Generally, it is every year, and starting next year, it will be every year. So the kids,
So next year you expect a 40%?
it's 40 to 60% growth, yes, over the course of the school year.
Okay.
And compared to whatever cohort DESE has said
Right.
that kid falls into.
All right.
And each student gets a growth percentile, but I'm just talking about aggregate right now.
Okay, no, 40 to 60. Okay.
All right, any other questions for me? I know I went long, I'm sorry, but Dawn asked a lot of questions.
They were important questions, and thank you for your explanation.
My pleasure.
Great. Thank you also for all the information. And let's see. Next on the agenda would be the approval of minutes from November 16th, 2022, and I think we already have an edit that needs to be proposed because the minutes we have in front of us say October 19th, not November 16th.
So, Madam Chair, I move to approve the meeting minutes from November 16th, 2022 with the edits of October 19th to October 16th.
To
November 16th, sorry.
It's okay. We have a motion.
Second.
Thank you, Dawn. Anybody see anything else? Any discussion? Okay. Matt, how do you vote?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So the minutes are approved with that edit. Okay. And this is the board.
Okay, so first on my section is the professional development update, and as you know, we're working with Dr. Cruz Bornum on our DEI work for a 3-year period. She's partnering with us. This is year 1. And so I do sit in on their sessions. So we had our half day on December 5th, and when I was sitting in with the high school group, she was really focusing on sort of providing teachers with the skills that they need to sort of have the difficult conversations with students, as well as when they observe another colleague who's not addressing something that they see. So it's interrupting microaggressions, interrupting conversations in the moment, how to have general discussions and provide options to parents if you're having that conversation. It was talking to teenagers about racism, so it's very timely and appropriate. It's just going to be sort of that 3-year process to get everyone to where they need to be. And so at the high school, like I said before, we have split up the staff. I might have looked at a different model looking in hindsight, but so right now we have 3 departments who are working with Dr. Warnham, and then different departments will work with her in year 2, as well as we have Coombs working, and Quashnet currently is not working with Dr. Warnham there in year 2, but they are doing collaborative problem solving. So. But she has, what's great about her is she offers herself up to every staff member individually to connect with her if they have a particular challenge or want advice from her. And so I know the staff has reached out to her, so I'm very grateful that we have that partnership with her. In your enrollment sheet is page 4 of the packet. Does anyone have any questions on what's on that sheet? And then you have the personnel update, which is page 5. We have had some new hires. Jason Berkman is a long-term sub-paraprofessional at the MMHS. Jeremy McLean is a long-term substitute science teacher. He had been a para, which is why Jay is there. Nicolette Branson, she is our athletic trainer, assistant athletic director. She started this past Monday. We're super, super excited, and she's just phenomenal. Julia Ferreira is serving as a long-term substitute guidance counselor at the middle school level, and Caitlin Craig is a new grade 4 teacher at Quashnet. She started this past Monday as well. Retirements, we have Melissa Plourde as a middle school guidance counselor. Shannon Lee, sadly, Friday is her last day. She's the executive administrative assistant to the middle high school principal, and we're losing her to the Mashpee Police Department. And then we have a resignation from Raymond Gorman, grade 4 teacher. So yet to be filled as of today is the executive administrative assistant at the high school. There's a long-term sub position, para position at the middle high school, and a special ed teacher at Coombs, but we do have a person coming in tomorrow who's a very strong candidate, so hopefully she'll be able to start after the first of the year. In terms of an update for...
I have
sorry.
a question,
Yeah.
which I...
Oh, you want me to explain that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so a question via email from Don earlier. He was questioning the designation as an assistant athletic director. So as you recall, or may not, but in the past and contractually, Matt Treveri, as our athletic director, is entitled to an administrative assistant support, clerical support. And that previously was Kaylee Green, who had a child, and then now she took a different position in with another district. So the assistant athletic director, as it's labeled, is a 30% Unit C position falling under the administrative assistant salary schedule. It's just starting to sort of recognize what it is, and it potentially would look better for the person who's doing it with that label. But that part of her job is a .30 Unit C position. And then, so she's working every day from, it's either like 12:30 to, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes a day in that role. And then there's like a little half an hour break, and then she rolls into the bulk of her role, which is the athletic trainer, is basically 3 to 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought, just based on the title, that some of the athletic director's responsibilities were being potentially transferred to an assistant, but it does not sound like that.
Well, no, they are all ultimately the athletic director's responsibilities, but when it comes to what has been done in the past, so scheduling buses, communicating to parents, making sure all of the requirements of an athlete have been turned in, like that's all things that is an athletic director, so now he has a person to do it. It is truly taking on his responsibilities. It's not just, typing a letter or anything like that. It's very broadly all related to the athletics. Her location is down in the athletic wing, in the what was called the coach's room. So all of her role is down in that location.
Okay, I think I do. Thank you.
In terms of school year 22-23 update, I don't know if you're interested. We do have one principal who's ill this evening, so we don't have a Coombs representative. We do have Principal O'Brien. If you wish to say anything, you don't have to. I don't know if you wanted to give any accolades for your recent very generous community we have.
Absolutely. We have been so fortunate to receive.
You don't have a microphone.
I'm in the front row today. I thought I was okay. Hi, everyone. We just have been so fortunate to receive so many very generous donations from the community to help our families. Huge support from Dino And every year, but this year he and his staff really went above and beyond. Mashpee Kiwanis Club, we're so fortunate to receive help from them. Mashpee Police Department always comes out in full force to support our families. Southport Falcons as well sponsored over 14 different families and brought gift cards. I'm just so grateful to this community for all of the support, and I can't even tell you the anonymous donations that we have received, both from a very generous staff, retired staff. It warms my heart, it truly does. And it's all going directly to our families and to support our children. So, thank you for all of that. Other than that, happy holidays, everybody.
Okay, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay.
You know, she does such a nice job at
I
it.
know.
And I
Between
just
her
want
and
to
Dalia.
piggyback on the community because we're seeing the same thing. It's unbelievable what's coming through the door for support for these students over the holidays. So kudos to Mashpee.
I will address, you have a letter in front of you which is dated today, the 21st. Last week, we sent out a letter on Wednesday, the 14th, addressing what has really come to surface in terms of what seems to be a significant number of students have experienced over multiple years, racism, microaggressions, macroaggressions. And so we tried to capture last week where we're at as a starting point, and we have had a lot of conversations with students, with staff, and Dr. Warnham as well, and also the Anti-Defamation League. But today's letter is really, we promised in last week's letter that we would share some information this week in terms of short-term action steps. So I'm just going to kind of briefly go over the bullets here. We are definitely reinforcing with students that there are safe spaces available for them to share concerns with trusted adults. We also are working on a goal of building our students' capacity. We want to empower them to choose not to be silent, because that is how we are going to be able to sort of dismantle racism there. And we are a mirror to society, so it's everywhere, but we want to empower our students to understand the damage that remaining silent can cause. We have consulted with Dr. Khalees Warnham. I've already talked about the DEI work she's doing in the district, specifically around helping our staff being able to develop the skills to respond appropriately when they observe macro and microaggressions. Also helping them understand their own biases and then recognizing action steps that are necessary to be an anti-racist. Last year, we worked with the Anti-Defamation League of New England to train a team of student peer leaders at Mashpee Middle High School. That was through a grant that Dr. Hanscom got for us. And so the student leaders are visiting the 7th and 9th grade wellness classes to provide anti-bias training to their fellow students. And this is something that's going to go through the spring. I think it goes through May with these visits.
And what grade levels are those students?
The student peer leaders are currently
It's a high school group,
12th and 11th.
but the middle school students who wanted to participate from last year who had been trained were invited to join if they wanted to.
Yes, we trained middle school and high school students last year. Each school is completing the required steps to earn the designation of a No Place for Hate school. This is through the Anti-Defamation League. And through this program, each school establishes a small steering committee that's composed of student, staff, and parent guardians, and they determine initiatives that will be undertaken to improve student behavior and school culture. And you start with the process of applying, and then they have tremendous resources, but there will be 3 initiatives that the steering group at each school will choose for that school, and once those are accomplished, then you will be recognized, and you have to do it annually when sort of reapplying. We currently have an online anonymous tip line in place that's called Securely, and it's a reporting tool that can be easily accessed by students, staff, and parents and guardians. We're providing the community with sort of a reminder, refresher, and messaging about the importance of using the tool to report concerning behaviors. And so on every student's Chromebook and every teacher's computer, we have what we call Mashpee Central. It's a drop-down menu, and it's right there. There are also QR codes on posters, particularly actually at all the schools, where you can also access the form right away. And then we, key individuals within the district get the alert all hours of the day, and will take steps based on what is reported. And you can give your name, or you don't have to give your name. It is anonymous. We have met with representatives of the tribe. We actually had our quarterly meeting last week.
Yes.
Last week. And we have worked to create a plan to increase the Native American presence in our schools in terms of adults that our Native students can go to when they have concerns or experiences. And so far, we've started to see a little bit of an increase, particularly Darius. He does a lot of work here at Quashnet, and Tootie does a lot of work at Coombs, but the middle high school, there were some gaps. So getting, I know Talia's come in, I know Pam has come in, during the 3 lunch blocks, to have that access where Native students could go with them and be able to, eat their lunch as well as get support. On the back of the letter, it talks about the buddy system that we want to put in place at the middle high school. So grades 10, 11, and 12 students would be connected with students in grades 7, 8, and 9. And we have it as a goal to develop relationships, communicate expectations, provide support and guidance to our younger students, and to work together to problem solve, incorporating more than one perspective and multiple voices. We do find that middle school students do tend to listen better to their older peers than necessarily adults. So we're hoping to utilize those resources to message the type of school culture that we want and everyone deserves. And then lastly, so far as a short term, we are working with Dr. Warner to schedule an evening date for a parent-guardian Zoom so that she can sort of empower our parents to know how to have these conversations with their own students. And sometimes I think kids don't recognize, we talked, and I might have said it in the other letter, but I don't know, but some of our students have gone along to get along for years, and they might laugh something off that shouldn't be laughed off. And so sometimes, the student who might be considered the aggressor is going to say, maybe he didn't know that, whatever. So we have to have parents help us. It really cannot be done by just the school. And again, it's a mirror of society, so we're not in the best place with that. But this letter did go out today to sort of give an update before we head into the break on some of the work that is being done. And definitely our students are, it's been very helpful to have their input. In terms of, let's see, so any other pages within the administrator, you have Matt Treveri, the athletic director's
Superintendent
sheets.
DeBoer,
Yes.
before we leave the letter, I guess I have a question or a comment. Because and this is the first time I've seen this, look of this letter that you're sending out, or have to send out, makes me feel that there is a much bigger issue under the surface than I was aware of, or was alluded to from this recent incident. So, because my understanding, and maybe it's not right, was that this incident that occurred was between 2 willing individuals who were basically horseplaying. But this tells me that's not really what's going on here, that there's a much bigger issue that we've been ignoring or haven't addressed adequately. And so, on one hand, we've got kids who are doing things that have are interpreted in one manner which is totally bad, in my opinion. And on another, we're saying that we've got ongoing issues that we've been trying to address that are still there, and need to be even more focused on. Is that?
Yes,
So can you tell me, once and for all, the initial incident that occurred, did that fall into the items that were listed here or not?
The incident that basically brought out more experiences that students have had
Yeah.
Was isolated in itself, but so very troubling to so many students that it sort of was, yeah, it was the catalyst. It just allowed them to say, okay, this can't continue. So what happened from that one incident, which was, you know, if it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen, because I believe things happen for a reason. It has then had, it has prompted students to say, okay, these are some things that have happened to us. Generally, what is happening are macro and microaggressions, where mostly towards students of color, but not always. It can be very different isms that other students are experiencing as well. And those who are delivering it, many do know it's hurtful, wrong, and shouldn't happen. Some may not, but they go along with the group. They think it's a joke. But so some of what has been shared with us are students' experiences, generally student to student, that can go back, I mean, all the way to the Coombs School. So we need to do a better job. It's not just educating our students with reading and writing and all of what you think of traditionally with education. We really have to create what our Portrait of a Graduate says. We have to create these students that are better human beings in a world where they are exposed to adults who are not good role models for how to be respectful and kind to each other. So the incident of now about 2 weeks ago is what has brought, you know, it has enraged students to want to take action and to change things.
And you know, I'm sad that that incident occurred. I think that individuals made very poor choices in acting that out, you know, assuming that it was being acted out and not being intentionally done. And maybe it is something small like that that is necessary in order for this to get the focus that it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to making sure that teachers who hear these interactions have a skill set and are comfortable interrupting it, calling it out, holding the student who's saying it accountable, connecting with that student's parents. It cannot be ignored anymore. And it doesn't just go on in hallways. It can go on in classrooms, which, you know, it's...
I mean, at the trial, and I'm sure, I don't know if you were going to bring up from the tribal partnership meeting, but, you know, a few weeks prior to that, at one of the assemblies, a pretty big incident happened, and the students were empowered to speak up against it, that I think made the other incident, from my standpoint, kind of really get that ball rolling, because I'm not saying had that incident not happened, the second one wouldn't have been diminished. I think both of them in and of themselves are pretty not what we want Mashpee to be. That's not what we all work toward as a community, but between those two incidents, you know, it seemed to really bring some things to light that I think Superintendent DeBoer and the administration have been trying to come up with this plan, and I appreciate it. I did read this letter before I came in tonight, so thank you for updating us. I do think it's important to know, you know, and that communication was something that some people weren't totally sure of, so I feel like this is definitely a more concrete plan to see the path forward and the work that's ahead of us, because it's going to take some time. But I think, you know, to your point, it wasn't just one incident. I think, you know, with the first incident at the assembly and then this incident with the photograph, like, those two really kind of showed how students spoke up, how students took, you know, almost the initiative to say, this is not, we've got to stop this, and now giving everybody the tools to work together to stop it, I think is kind of how I see it, because unfortunately this is not just endemic of Mashpee, this is kind of everywhere, unfortunately, and I do think, again, this is a very solid path forward, and it's going to take a lot of work. But
yeah, I just see the, you know, I know.
I know that I've kind of been quiet about the situation, and obviously, for my very own reasons, going through the public schools and, being a minority in your own community, I've faced challenges at Barnstable and other places. But nowhere in this letter do I see anything talking about a zero tolerance policy. I understand that we might have some bullying prevention, intervention plans
No
here
Place
for us
for
to
Hate
vote.
is, not to interrupt you, but No Place for Hate is a zero tolerance
Right.
policy. It's just they don't call it a zero tolerance, but No Place for Hate is the zero tolerance policy.
Right.
So it might not have that specific name, but that's exactly what that
Yeah, but
program is.
sometimes you need to spell it out. And
Sure.
I think that's
No,
the biggest
that's-
thing.
yep,
'Cause,
that's a
I mean,
good
I
point.
was on, the Human Rights Club and all this other stuff, so I think that if it's not spelled out, and like you said, it starts with the parents, but my concern is, beating around the bush and talking about the tribe. I mean, the secretary of the tribe is here. I'm not sure if she wanted to say anything, but I was told, which I don't really have a lot of involvement in this issue, that the tribe didn't show up tonight because of the issues that are going on. And they respectfully didn't want to address anyone at this point in time and wanted to wait, which is a concern. And let's not forget that last year, after a presentation, there were non-natives that were mocking our native students when Mark Bellastracci was here as the principal. I'm also concerned about the horror stories I've heard from students, as well as staff and community members. And I think that it's a concern because they're afraid to address people because of the backlash or anything else that would happen. I think that there's bigger issues really going on here in the district, and I think that us as the leadership of this district really need to look into this stuff, because I think it's unacceptable to say, it's so great to be here in Mashpee, but, you can't even respect, the original inhabitants of this land and this place. And, if you want, you should educate them more on the Wampanoags, because racism is not something that the Wampanoags created. We don't see things as black or white or this, that, and the third. There's a reason why we teach the medicine wheel colors and we talk about the red, the black, the yellow, and the white. I think there are some teachings here that we can look on and rely on, but I'm more concerned about the parents and the students who are affected by this, and the fact that it has been brought to administration or other people's attention, and why it's gone on for this long, and then just saying this is, what kind of brought it to our attention. We've been seeing it. So we can sit here and say that we haven't seen it and it hasn't been going on, but, I graduated over 10 years ago and it was going on then, so, the fact that it's still going on is definitely a concern. I appreciate the letters and everything else going out like that, but I think if we're really gonna talk about a partnership, we really need to know and understand what does that partnership look like, and make sure that we're educating, everyone, not just our staff and faculty, but the community members. I mean, Dr. Khalees Warnham is great. If we have these educational training sessions or anything like that for parents, the only ones that are gonna show up are the ones whose parents or kids are affected by this. The ones that don't wanna show up aren't gonna show up. I mean, racism has become cool because of the past administration. Now everybody wants to come out and just be openly racist. I mean, we've been dealing with racism in this town long before any of this. I mean, so there's a lot of underlying issues, and this is a generational issue too, I think. So that's why I think it needs more attention than we're kind of giving. And, letters are great, but our actions, I think, are going to speak louder than our words, so.
And to your point, you're echoing a lot of what was said at the tribal school committee, our partnership meeting, because that was kind of what the vice chair of the tribe said as well. Words are great, and I agree. I mean, he wasn't wrong. Words are great, and having concrete steps forward, I think, is the best way through this. And it's not easy work. It's not easy conversations, and we've got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, and we've got to really figure out what those steps forward are. And while, yes, I grew up in Mashpee, went to Mashpee schools too, nothing I heard from any of these things surprised me. I wish they did. They didn't. And I think the difference between then and now is that the communication's more out in the open. Yes, there's still pockets where we probably need to shine the light, and we need to really open that conversation even more. But I do feel like this might be some of the most concrete steps I've seen that I can recall. I mean, trying to train the staff and faculty is like the first step. Yes, I think that's important. We all know that there's been instances where, and kids know which teachers are the, we could probably go back and forth because we probably know, you know what I mean? I think starting somewhere, it's got to start somewhere, and I hear you, and I understand, and I think at the partnership meeting, we really did dig into this in a sense of, yes, we know, words are words. We need to put the action behind them, and I feel like this is the first step, is like seeing what is currently happening, now taking this and actually putting wheels to the ground, and then once we kind of work on some of this, what are the next steps? And kind of just holding, like you said, holding everybody up to what these words say. Did we do this? Yes. What's next? How can we improve on it? Where do we need to shine the light now? And just continuing. It's not an overnight process, and it is going to be, as you said, generational, and it is going to have to rely on people having a more open mind. And I think, like you said, it starts with us, and as long as we are behind what is the initial start, we can move forward. At least that's my take on it, and that's what I took from that partnership meeting, and that's what I'm taking from these letters. I'm not trying to diminish anybody. I mean, I was mortified when I heard what happened, honestly. I mean, my child was mortified because she heard it, and she was just disgusted. And that group of kids did speak up, you know what I mean? So it's like, there are people who are starting to do the work. We've just got to keep pounding on it and keep, getting the information out there and keep reminding people that it's here. We need to do this. We can't let it sit. There are people being impacted by this. This isn't our town, and this isn't what we want our town to be. You know what I mean? Like, that's just my thoughts on this, and that's what I took from it.
Can I just share one thing that's not in the letter that I want to make sure is clear? This letter was to get out the short-term interventions that we're putting in place now. We have a graph going, a chart going of short-term, mid-range, and long-term interventions or things that we need to do to address the racism that's happening in Mashpee Public Schools and that has been happening in the Mashpee Public Schools. We wanted to get out to the community before the break the short-term things that we're doing, but there is a slew of other things that we're doing. Mid-range was through the end of this school year, and then longer range is beyond that, which we can address at, I think, the next school
meeting. You can provide updates throughout this process.
Absolutely, but I wanted to make it clear, this was not it. This was the now, immediate, short-range plans that we put in place. So, sorry to interrupt.
I just want to add one point, because Brian's, points are well taken, but generalized when you use the term administrator. So I'm going to say that in my years, working with Principal O'Brien and her leadership at Quashnet, there is never an issue that has not gotten addressed, whether it's racism or another one. I also feel like when I know about things, I do take action. Principal Goulart's not here, and Principal Manette is new in her role. So somewhere along the line, though, because I agree that it's happening and administrators are not taking action, there are some weak links somewhere along the way, and that is affecting all of us, and it's sort of a black mark on sort of the progress we want to make. So we are looking at that because we hear what our students are telling us, and then I'm like, why wasn't that addressed? So I take this very seriously, and when I was a leader of a building and hands-on more than I am now, those were never anything that I shied away from. We addressed, we problem-solved together with the family, we held students accountable, we tried to teach them so they would be better. And I know that that is happening at Quashnet. That is our goal at the middle high school, and I know Dr. Minette shares that goal of work. But so I just want to acknowledge that to paint a paintbrush of sort of administrator lack of work on this, or they turn their backs and they don't do anything, that is a little bit bothersome to me. But I do recognize that from a kid's perspective, that's all they know is that I reported this and nothing happened. So that's what we're digging into in our roles, because that can't continue.
By listening to students.
And then following up and then putting some systems in place that allow us to hold administrators accountable for what students, like if students go to an administrator and nothing happens, we don't know, how do we do anything about it? So we have to have a check and balance system in place to make sure the needs and the experiences of our students are being problem solved and addressed.
And another thing that came up in regards to that too is I think along the lines of communication is the partnership meeting we agreed, communications need to happen when the incidents happen. As soon as they're made known, people will be reaching out saying, hey, this happened today, these are the affected people, how can we support, how will you support, how do we work together to support, and really provide that information as it's happening, as opposed to letting it go and then being brought up and having people say, well, did you even know this happened? And it had already been addressed, handled, dealt with, but communication along the way got fractured. And I think, that's a major misstep. And it was acknowledged, and we all around the table agreed that that is one thing we can immediately address and fix. And I do have some confidence that that will be the case going forward, because that meeting, the last portion of that meeting was a very intense meeting, I must admit. But I feel like it had some productive points to it, where I left feeling like, okay, we've started the conversation. Like, now, the wheels are turning, let's keep going, because it was.
Yeah, because there were missteps that we made.
There were, and they were
So it was a
acknowledged.
really great opportunity, at least from my perspective, to say, oh my gosh, I never even thought of it that way. Thank you so much, and in the future, here's what we do. So I want to make sure, Brian, you weren't at the meeting, and Kathy did a fabulous job of, I think we can skip the next agenda item, because Kathy did a
Sorry,
fabulous job of
I didn't mean to jump
explaining it.
ahead, but it tied into this conversation so
And
much.
I
that-
think it's important also for the committee to, Brian, I don't know who you were speaking for when you just said that folks didn't come from the tribe for that reason, but, we had a different message given to us, so if that is the case, the communication needs to happen so that we can address that too, because this is an important role for the tribe to speak to you, and so any sort of lingering feelings we want to deal with and improve so that we can continue to work together and get better every day.
I think that's why I'm here, to be helpful in that process, and, no disrespect to the administration or anyone, like your point, Patty, if they're not addressing it or bringing it to your attention, then how can you do anything about it, just like, through, other people in the community. And I think that sometimes it's that lack of communication because of the turnover in administration. I mean, I think that, Mrs. O'Brien's been here for a while. The high school's definitely gone through at least a couple of different changes since then. And some of these students get comfortable, but then they also get to learn the tribe and know more about it. I mean, it's great to bring them on tours around the tribe and this, that, and the third, but it takes a while to kind of get, comfortable and really understand, the Wampanoags or any other group, as a people, I think. So I think that's kind of the miscommunication sometimes. So it's no, disrespect to you and the administration. I think it's just something that we can work on with the communication.
Again, we gotta be comfortable with the uncomfortable, and really just, only way out is through.
That's right. I just want to pop back quickly for the recognition piece. I was going to speak about Airness because I did go Friday night, and it was an amazing play. It was really just what I needed to have and watch, and I just loved the interaction of the kids. I was able to see them this week in a couple of classes too, but just, like, that's their team. Like, that's their team. So I was like, it was awesome. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow night they should be at the Mashpee Middle High School Gymnasium. I believe at 6:30 is when our girls basketball team will be playing Carter. And there is a strong likelihood that Hialeah Turner Foster is going to hit her 1,000th point. So we're hoping that we really, as they refer to it as the nest, fill the nest with support for her. It's really, I had the pleasure, so Mashpee Men's Club, Hialeah was one of the students that, of the 10 students we took to the men's club. It's an annual event where they welcome us to their meeting, and each of the students sort of shares their journey. But I got to sit with Hialeah at lunch, and I just said to her, I said, when I watch you play, you are so like one with the ball. Like it's hard to even describe. She's quick. She's hard for anybody to catch, but she's so, nothing else probably, she doesn't notice anything else, I think, when she plays. So she's really a joy to watch. And then I wanted to thank the National Honor Society and Mr. Brody. They had a blood drive last Friday, and they were able to provide 34 units of blood to Cape Cod Healthcare, which is very good. And Mary Kate touched on the Kiwanis Club, but just today they brought us $900 in Stop and Shop gift cards, $300 for each of the schools. So they're always pretty consistent with helping our kids. And then in your packet, you do have the narrative for our FY24 budget.
Superintendent, before we get to that, I just had a comment in regard to page 8 of Consuelo's report. So in the report, under hashtag We Are Mashpee, there is a current promotion of 20% off if you subscribe to the Falcon Media YouTube channel. So of course, I went to try to find that. It's actually the Mashpee Falcon Media YouTube channel. There is a ton of Falcon Media channels out there, so if you don't go to Mashpee, you're not going to find it. You're not going to help her get to her 1,000 subscriber goal. So I just want to clarify that, because if we get to 1,000, as I read this, we can have live streaming of concerts, plays, and school committee meetings.
Yes, yes,
Yes?
yes.
So I would like to get my public announcement to encourage everyone who's watching to please go to the Mashpee Falcon Media YouTube channel and subscribe.
And we'll use a bigger font in our Friday communication, because that's in there every week, so please sign up and subscribe.
Maybe you
Sounds
need to
good.
throw in like some ice cream to sweeten the deal.
They're at 283
Followers, oh, geez, we're way behind.
followers, so they got a ways to
Well,
go.
we need every student who is.
There you go.
Every student should-
Exactly.
should sign
Right
up for
there,
that.
600 something right there.
Those of you sitting in the audience, just click, click subscribe.
I told Mr. Roney to put it on the Chromebook bar as propaganda.
Oh.
Because once they cook it.
Yeah.
Have it run as a stream on the bottom of the Falcon.
Yeah.
Just like this nonstop thread.
So,
Yeah, I think we
just
should do
adding
something
that
with our
information would
students.
make it more helpful for people to find what you're trying to achieve.
Of course, yes.
Thank you for pointing that out, Don. We appreciate that. Because everyone wants to see our very engaging meetings live streamed every week.
I heard it was the highest rated thing on Channel 99.
It might be.
Still trying to catch up to C-SPAN.
To do
We're
anything else?
still trying to catch up to
No,
C-SPAN.
just the budget narrative is in your packet. I think the only thing that was, I will make an edit that Mr. Myers pointed out with the bullet, but on a certain page. But I think we did add on page 4, the box at the bottom was just trying to emphasize and capture and not forget the $400,000 reduction from what the school committee voted. So that's there. And next meeting, which is January 4th, I think that is the public hearing on the budget, so I will be presenting it with slides and going over it in detail, including our CIP that's in here as well.
In your packet are the standard FY23 budget reports. In your packet is the standard FY23 budget reports. I did not receive any questions ahead of the meeting. Does anyone have any now?
I do. I noticed or saw pictures that we got new scoreboards for the gymnasiums. And can you tell me where that came from?
CIP.
Part of
That came out in our budget.
That's part of the CIP?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
That was the perfect answer, I think.
I didn't remember that we had that on.
It was part of the
Yeah, it was a
gymnasium
gym.
renovation at Quash. She got new ones too, the big amount, and then the floor and scoreboards were an upgrade at the high school.
That's what happens when you get old. Okay.
Also, last week, we met with the town to go over the FY24 budget. It was our initial meeting with the town manager and various representatives from the select board and FinCom.
We didn't really
I
have
do.
too many questions.
So they didn't have any questions? So
Very many.
Very many questions. So what is, we have a certain amount of choice funds that are allocated. Because of the fact that we're allocating the bulk of our choice funds to the ventilation project for Casey Coombs. Are they comfortable with that?
We didn't go into that kind of conversation. It was really high level for them to review the packet and just the information that we had already sent over to the town. As we go through the process and when we meet the CIP, those conversations will be much more in detail.
Okay, because I personally don't want to get surprised like we got last year. And so, as we're talking about and trying to finalize the budget from a school committee perspective, knowing what the town manager's thought process is in regard to yay or nay of what has been conveyed to him to date. Would be very useful information to know when we have our budget meeting in January.
I agree.
Great.
So if someone can ferret that out, or if we can get the town manager to.
We did reinforce with him that if you were comparing our FY '24 proposed budget with the FY '23 that was approved by school committee, the increase from those two budgets is like 2.57%. So that's sort of a good number to hold on to, because that's the budget that you had developed and very thoughtfully. So some of the things we had to shift from this year, because of the $400,000 cut, but you can't, that's not where we need to start from. You can't compare that budget, in my opinion. They will, but.
No, they will, and, amnesia sets in really quick when they're trying to balance their budget without making cuts if they are necessary on their side. And so, I think you've presented to date a very compelling story. I just need some feedback, and would like some feedback prior to us voting or finalizing voting on our budget, so that we don't end up having to come back because of subsequent actions by the town manager that should have been, or not, in my opinion, should have been communicated to us sooner.
So I will make sure that you do your vote on the 18th, I believe, in January, so, conversations with them. But everything is after that. We present to FinCom after that, all of those things, but.
Right, but the FinCom doesn't ultimately decide the school budget. It's the town manager, and what he proposes is the driving force of what goes into that omnibus warrant article.
And I think the finance working group has had those discussions too about how to convey that to the town manager and, have a better understanding of all the moving pieces such as school choice funds and all of those pieces so that it's clear what's what. And, that conversation has been had at the finance working group, so I think it will continue to happen and be relayed as needed.
And it's also been relayed by administration. Patty has a scheduled weekly call with the town manager, and in those conversations, we hope that he'll be able to be transparent if there's going to be a reduction or what his thoughts are on the budget. Every time we meet with him to either go over the operating budget or the capital budget, we ask for his feedback to see where he stands, so we can bring that information back to you, so we're all on the same page as we move forward through this process.
Because at this point, he has all the information from the various departments in the town and should have a good picture, will have a good picture in regard to the revenue. So I'm just asking that we get some feedback. This isn't a one-way street where we're saying we need this and this is why. I would like to have some, ideally, positive affirmation that the schools
Will not be in the position we're in last year.
budget is appropriate and can be supported by the town. End of story.
Okay, thank you, Dawn, and thank you, Ashley. Do you have anything else to add to that? Okay. All right, we're getting close to that 7:30 mark, and we're not that far behind, so.
You don't get your hour prize.
I didn't get my hour prize, so I'm not happy about that, but we'll keep going. All right, subcommittee liaison meetings, working groups, it looks like we had an outreach working group meeting on the 7th. Dawn and Brian, do you want to share out on that? Please? Okay.
So I met with Patty and Hope and I think who else was there?
It was just us.
Was it just us? And we went through some of the questions that were being proposed based on prior years for comparability and thinking about potential new questions to be added to the survey. That's about all I
So
can
in
tell you.
January, probably at the 18th meeting, you'll have sort of a list of questions that we're going to propose to move forward with for next year's survey.
Can I add one quick thing? We also have a student advisory, a superintendent student advisory council at the Mill High School, and we are working with them to solicit feedback on the student questions as well that go out.
Meet with them once a month.
Thank you. Okay, any specifically assigned unfinished business? I did not know of any. Anything? No. Okay, moving on. New business. We have a vote on this. This is the updated bullying prevention and intervention plan, pages 27 through 45.
So we're required to review and update our plan every 2 years, or biennially, whatever that word is. And so the memo just sort of captures the changes. It was changing, parents, guardians instead of the or, the reference to the term target instead of victim, and then making sure we had, where it was referenced, we added section 37H and 3/4 from the Mass General Law. The format of this policy or this plan comes from DESE and from obviously the original year that it was developed in the 2010-11 school year. Each year it gets updated. It was shared with administration the building administrators as well. So there weren't any other directives in terms of updates from the Department of Ed. And so it just, the last part of it is the bullying investigation form that is used. And it is to be used every single time someone reports bullying. Oftentimes it doesn't materialize as qualifying as bullying, but this is the sheet where principals or assistant principals start their work. I don't know if anybody has any questions specifically about.
Is the term target from like DESE 2, is that like where that comes from?
Yeah, the
like,
list of vocabulary that they
interesting
give
choice
us.
of, sorry, that's just from my full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah, could we strain away from that with anything domestically related? Yeah. Yeah.
And timing-wise, it's really, there are many kinds of bullying, so this plan is to capture sort of what happens and the action steps we take, but also recognizing it and making sure we're clear and understanding. Does anybody have any thoughts you'd like to? Sure.
Brian, good enough? Any of yours, Brian? Did you see anything?
Just give me one last
I'm giving you one more minute. I did not see anything. Fine with me.
Yeah, the changes are in red text.
Thank you for doing that, by the way, it made it much easier to read. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the updated bullying prevention and intervention plan as presented with edits in red.
Okay, so, Madam Chair, I motion to approve edits to the Mashpee Public Schools Bullying Prevention and Intervention Plan as presented in Superintendent Patricia DeBoer's memo to the school committee dated December 21st, 2020.
Thank you, Brian. I need a second.
I can second that.
Thank you, Matt. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Matt, how do you vote?
Yes?
Brian?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I myself also vote yes. Thank you.
So
Sorry.
you, oh, it's good.
That's
Go
fine.
to the next one.
Yep, so we also have a vote on the next item, which is the out-of-state field trip for grade 11 to Washington DC from Sunday, October 1st, 2023 through Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. This is in lieu of their February Disney trip. They changed their mind, I guess. Anybody want to speak to that?
Well, so we did meet, Principal Manette and I met with Stephanie Soares, who is the advisor for the class of 24, is it? It's next year, yes. The interest, her original plan with going to Walt Disney World this year, I think it was February or April, over vacation week, did not really generate the interest from the student body that she had hoped. And then, you know, the positive feedback from when the night, which group did you take?
10th
The 10th grade trip to DC this past October just made them all like, we want that, and they never had it. And so we decided, because we have 2 other DC trips in this school year, that it would be great to have it as a senior year trip for the group that didn't get to go. And so October gives us enough planning time and all of that, so it's a better plan, I think, we think.
Sounds good to me.
So basically just voting to, like, you know, say, hey, okay, we recognize that you're changing it from.
We're voting to approve the trip. This one.
Yeah.
Because it's out of state.
Yeah.
Because it's an out-of-state trip, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the trip to Washington DC for grade 11.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for the out-of-state field trip for Mashpee Middle High School, grade 11, Washington DC, for Sunday, October 1, 23. Wednesday, October 4th, 2023, in lieu of February's 2023 Disney trip.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Can you get a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion?
Just a comment. So, and I'll vote to approve this, but do we not historically, or maybe I'm thinking incorrectly again, usually have some sort of agenda with these requests?
Oh, for what's going to, you have in the past, we have that in terms of what they're going to be doing, the plan. It's going to mirror the trip that Dr. Manette just went on, so we definitely can tell you what happens on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
But when these requests are submitted, could they?
Oh, not that I'm aware of.
I thought we did.
Not always.
You might be thinking
I'm
of
thinking
the
of
Europe
the
trip?
Europe trip.
The Europe
they
trip
submitted one
was a little bit different, yeah.
Which is
But yes, if
coupled
you
with
like,
what
we
they're
can,
doing,
we can do that.
and be
for
able
you.
to make
Yeah.
a wise and informed decision.
Sure.
You know, I trust that there will be a very educational agenda and we'll be dancing on the boat again.
Well, there might be dancing on the boat as well, but you know.
Yeah.
It's also not just the educational learning about DC and history and all that, but it is a very, it's a strong team builder for the group of students, so there's a lot of quality time on the bus that is very educational and helpful to building relationships.
So I would just ask if we could subsequently.
We can give you, yes.
Get the agenda
Yeah.
for this particular trip and
Sure.
subsequent.
That way we
trips.
can live vicariously through that agenda.
Always wishful thinking.
Yeah, this
Little
is
skill
true.
ideas.
You might need an extra chaperone if you want to go, Dan.
All right, I'm gonna call for the vote. Matt?
I'm a yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so have fun, grade 11.
Well, we'll be seniors then.
They will. Oh, okay.
Patrick's very happy.
Enjoy. We can't wait to hear how it goes.
Oh, great.
All right, and it looks like up next we've got the new list of upcoming events, a few things highlighted, and it looks like some of these things are definitely things we should check out if we can.
Yeah, we try to put the double red asterisks there on any ones that sort of fit with your goals.
I did get to go to the Giving Tree event, and that was very fun to see all the families enjoying that. All right, there are no items that I did, or does anyone have any items that the chair did not know of in advance that you'd like to bring up?
You have there the printout of the article that'll put the enterprise on the schools.
And do we have any other public comment?
None on the list at this time.
Okay, and with that, we have dispensed with the agenda 5 minutes early, therefore the meeting is adjourned.
Nice job, Mrs.
Good
Lewis.
job, Kathy. Very good.